welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to get into these 4 new Viseart palettes. So they launched Petite 4 collection and I have all 4 of them. I'm gonna do a look with each one of the palettes. I'm actually not wearing them currently because I'm trying to get a bunch of pre-filming done before the holidays this coming week. So we're gonna jump into the details about these. So these retail for $22. I bought them from Viseart. So the first one we have here is Praline. And then we have Lilas, which is this one right here. Then we have Chocolat, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. You guys know that I botch everything, but this one is just a really pretty kind of like, you know, chocolatey, bronzy type of shades. And then we have Framboise, which I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that too. If I botched it, you guys definitely let me know. So that's what we are going to be reviewing today. I have a lot to say about these palettes. So we're going to jump into each tutorial using each one of these palettes. Then after we get through the tutorials, we'll jump into the swatches and then I will give you my full final thoughts. I have a lot to say. So without further ado, let's jump into the tutorials and I will see you in my final thoughts. Let's go ahead and start with this palette. This is called the Praline palette. I'm going to go into the matte shadow. And I'm just going to kind of carve out my crease. I'm just going to go in with a small blending brush and blend that out. I'm going to bring that shade on the lower lash line. I don't have any concealer on. So I'm just going to place it right here. I think I'm going to also put that on the inner corner. Okay, now I'm going to take the Refer number 21 brush and I'm going to grab this shade right here. Now that I have the color placed down, I'm going to go in with my finger and intensify it just a little bit. Brush, and I'm going to grab this satin type of shimmer shade and softly bring that over top of the matte and kind of bring it out into the crease. Now I'm going to grab this really bright shimmery color and I'm going to place it right underneath the brow bone. I'm going to place that shade on the inner corner. I'm going to take a flat tip brush and I'm going to build a little bit of intensity at the base of the lashes. So I'm going to grab this shade, bring it right here. And also on the upper lash line. Okay, so this is the final look with the Praline palette, and I think this turned out really pretty. The only thing I will say is that this shade doesn't really build that much. This is about the depth that I'm gonna get on my skin tone, but this is the final look, and I think it's very soft and just kind of everyday wearable look. This is the final look with the Praline palette. Let's go ahead and jump into the next palette. Let's jump into the next palette. I'm going to start with this shade right here and see if I can use it as a transition in my crease. Okay, I'm gonna leave that there for now, and I am gonna jump into this shade right here. Now I'm going to go into the lighter matte and use that shade to blend out the darker matte. Okay, I'm going to bring the lighter matte on my lower lash line. And then I'm going to take that flat tip brush and go into the darker matte and smoke that into the lower lash line. And also right at the base of the upper lashes. I kind of want to place this bronzy coppery shade right on the center of my lid and just rub that into my lid. Okay, I think I want to bring a little teeny bit of that out into the crease. So I put some here on a blending brush, tapped off, so I didn't put a lot. And I'm just gonna go over top of the mattes with it, just a little bit. Then I want to see what that light shade looks like. So I'm going to grab the 21 brush from Refer, and I'm going to grab this shade right here. And I'm just going to pull that shade into the coppery bronzy shade and kind of mix them together. Again, I don't have any concealer on. The only thing I have is foundation on, which is the reason why my skin looks really shiny, because I put on the, I'm going to put that shade on the brow bone, but I put on the Tom Ford stick foundation and it's beautiful, but it definitely needs to be powdered when I wear it. And so because I knew I was going to be wiping off my eyeshadow, of course, I'm not going to put like full makeup on until, you know, my eyes are done. So that's the reason why my skin looks extra, extra shiny. So I'm sorry if it's distracting because I desperately need some powder. Okay, so this is the final look for this palette, and I don't mind this look. I would have hoped that I could have built up a little bit more depth with this shade. I really piled that shade on, but I just couldn't get a lot of depth with it. So I think that was probably the only disappointing part about using this palette. You know, a very coppery look, and it's very pretty. But I will definitely get into more of my thoughts about both of the palettes that I just used. So that's the final look. Let's go ahead and jump into the next two palettes. Let's move on to this palette. I think this is called Framboise, but I don't know. If I botched it, tell me, because you guys know I botch everything. Let's go ahead and grab this matte shade right here, just on like a regular fluffy brush. Now I'm going to grab this pink shade with my finger. I'm going to place this all over the lid. I'm gonna go into that pink shade with my fluffy brush and gently bring that up into the crease. Then I'm gonna take my finger and I'm gonna go into this really pretty, like, icy pink shade. I think I might wet that down just to get a little bit more impact. I'm gonna put that on this brush. I'm gonna put some of that icy pink right up here on the brow bone. And on the inner corner. And I think my final step is I'm gonna see if I can deepen up that pink matte shade. So I'm gonna take my flat tipped brush and I'm gonna go into this pink shade right here and smoke that into the lower lash line. Just to try to get depth. I don't really get a lot of depth from that shade. Okay, so this is the final look using this palette, and I want to first mention that in the tutorial, if it looked like my shutter speed was off, it's because it was. For some reason, my camera just decided to switch speeds. I don't know why. So if it looked weird, I apologize. I have now fixed it, and I am sorry. I did not realize that it was doing that until the very end. And I was like, wait, when I wave my hand, it like follows me. Anyway, I'm still not camera smart. I don't know that I ever will be, but just letting you know, I have fixed the problem. So my eyelash is definitely hanging on by a thread, but I'm going to be taking it off in a minute anyway, so I didn't really feel like it was, you know, that necessary to make sure it was on great. Again, like the other two, there's not a lot of depth to this. So I think if you're looking for that depth, you're going to want to reach for other palettes. So that's it for this look. Let's move on to the next and final palette. Let's move on to this palette. This is called the Lilas palette, and I'm curious about this one because this one doesn't really have a lot of depth to it. I am going to dip into this shade and see what we get. That color is kind of showing up, but like not a lot. So I'm going to wipe the brush off and I'm going to grab this shade. Okay, I'm going to take that matte there on the top on a pencil brush and bring that here on the outer corner. It is just not wanting to show up on my skin tone at all. It's just very, very light. So I'm going to grab this shade right here at the bottom. I'm going to pick that up and I'm going to place it here on the outer corner. Okay, I think I'm gonna grab that shade on a fluffy brush and I'm gonna bring a little teeny bit of that out into this outer corner just because I need some depth in this look on the crease. I don't have any depth, and so in order for me to get some kind of color, I need to add that shimmer. I'm going to bring that shade onto the lower lash line as well. Now, let's go into this light shimmer right here. I need some depth. This palette is very hard to use when I'm not getting any depth. So I'm gonna go into that shade here on the top, that top matte shade. Place it over the crease and just try to build this. I'm also gonna bring that light silver. I'm gonna bring the shimmer shade on the top row onto the brow bone as well. Okay, so I went ahead and threw on a lash, and this is the best I could get this because these shades are just way too light for my skin tone. So that's it for the final tutorial. Let's go ahead and jump into the swatches, and then we will get into my final thoughts. Let's go ahead and jump into my final thoughts. First thing I want to mention is the depth. These palettes don't really have a lot of depth. I think these are going to work best for those who have a pale or light medium skin. If you have medium skin or darker, you're going to have to use these palettes in conjunction with other palettes. I didn't really get a lot of depth with them, which I think is my biggest complaint. So in this Chocolat palette, this shade right here, I was really surprised because it's the darkest shade that we have in all four of the palettes, and it just did not build that good. So I had to keep packing it on and packing it on to try to get any type of depth. Even though the shade looks deep in the pan, there's really not a lot of depth in there. So, you know, just keep that in mind, especially if you do have my skin tone or darker. I think the palette I was most disappointed in is this one. This is the Lilas. Number one, there's no depth for these shades, and the shimmers are very similar. I wish that these shimmers didn't look so similar. I mean, the only difference is this is a deeper gray. When you only have 4 shades in a palette, it would have been nice to have even maybe a purple. I don't know. This is a silver, and this is just a darker silver. It's a beautiful shade though, but I think for this palette, only having a few shades, it needed something that gave you some color. I like these palettes, but I'm not in love with them. When I've bought like the Viseart just petite palettes, now I want to preface this by saying I don't have a huge collection in Viseart. So the only Viseart palettes that I have are the petites. So I don't have any of their larger palettes. And I'm not really super familiar with their formula or anything like that. I'm just going to start that out by saying. But when I use like a Charlotte Tilbury quad, you know, her mattes are very, very buildable. And you can really add a lot of depth. Even if you only have one matte in the palette, you can really build the depth within that shade. These, I struggled with doing that. So therefore, I'm kind of like, I'm not feeling these. I'm not like in love with them. And for me, I'm just one of those that these are just not going to work for me personally. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that this review was helpful. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope you guys all have a wonderful, wonderful holiday with your family, and I will see you all in my next video. Love you. Bye.